Welcome back to Inside Politics. Let's now switch over to the county of Nairobi. And Deputy Governor Ann Kananu Mwenda faces yet another legal hurdle in the journey to taking over power at City Hall. The High Court issued orders stopping her swearing in as Nairobi Governor following a petition by the Law Society of Kenya. The orders were issued just hours after Acting Governor Benson Mutura relinquished the instruments of power to Ms. Mwenda. Let's get more from KTN's Rita Tinina.
I, Benson Mutura Kangara, do swear.
For 29 days, Nairobi County Assembly Speaker Benson Mutura has been acting as Nairobi Governor. Not anymore.
I now therefore relinquish my acting as the Governor of Nairobi City County and resume my duties as the Speaker of the Nairobi County Assembly and allow Her Excellency Madam Ann Kananu to proceed and assume the office of the Governor in a substantive manner.
Mutura was sworn in as acting governor following the impeachment of Mike Sonko in December last year. At the time, Nairobi had no deputy governor who, according to the law, assumes the position of governor for the remainder of the term.
I, Ann Kananu Mwenda, do swear.
Last Friday, Ann Kananu Mwenda was sworn in as deputy governor following a hurried process. She was vetted by the County Assembly Vetting Committee. Hours later, a special sitting of the Assembly approved her nomination, and shortly before 2 p.m., she was sworn in as Deputy Governor.
My work is clearly cut out and will focus on building the visible achievements as seen in the last few months.
It has been a long road for the Deputy Governor. She was nominated by then-Governor Mike Sonko in January last year, but her vetting was stopped by the High Court after a petitioner moved to court, arguing that the Anti-Corruption Court had barred Sonko from accessing his office after facing graft charges when he made the nomination. The case was withdrawn 10 days ago, paving the way for her vetting and swearing in as Deputy Governor.
I'm not a politician, and I will not start being one.
Now she is edging closer to assuming the position of Nairobi Governor. But the governor's office may be so near yet so far. She faces yet another legal battle. High Court Judge Justice Anthony Mrima has issued orders barring her swearing in as Nairobi Governor following a petition by the Law Society of Kenya. In the petition, the LSK cites legal and constitutional loopholes arising from her vetting, approval, and swearing in as Deputy Governor. Justice Anthony Mrima, who certified the matter as urgent, referred it to the Acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu for the appointment of an uneven number of judges, not less than 3, to hear the matter. In the orders, the judge directs that, pending further orders of the multi-bench and with a view to maintaining the prevailing status quo, a temporary injunction be and is hereby issued restraining the respondents, their agents and or servants from swearing in Ann Kananu Mwenda as the Governor of Nairobi City County Government, pending the hearing of the application. It has taken 1 year for Ann Kananu Mwenda to assume the office of Deputy Governor. Now, another legal battle stands in her way to ascending to the position of Nairobi Governor. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Wanawakili Kipchumba Karori, let me begin with you. There seems to be two sides in this story, the legal side and the political side of it. Are you familiar with the legal aspect of it? What is going on?
I think, Ben, whatever is going on here is just a creation of phantoms. These are phantom stories. There are things that you can't do. The moment we activated Article 182, Sub-Article 4, which means the Speaker Mutura took over the functions of as an acting governor. Yes. It meant that the only next port of call was an election, which will have activated under the same article, Article 180, which means that there was the vacancy was declared, and indeed IEBC did go ahead and declare that there was a vacancy in Nairobi. So there is no framework of whatever happened recently where Mutura ceded power and gave it back to Ann Kananu, because the Gazette noted that IEBC gazetted an election, a by-election in Nairobi, had not been fulfilled, and even if the same had been suspended by a court of law, it has not been revoked. There is a difference between the two. And when we come back, under what framework was Mutura giving back power to Ann Kananu when we had not and we had not articulated Article 180 of a by-election of a governor and a deputy governor. Even if you were to read at Article 182 sub-Article 5, it says, unless otherwise stated by this constitution, that is the only way Mutura will have ceded power to any other person. But what happened, what we are trying to see is that people are trying to create confusions and subvert the law by interpreting the law backwards and interpreting the law in retrospect to fit into circumstances. The right thing to do, Ben, is it might be expensive, but that is the cost we pay for democracy. When we gave our powers we donated our powers under the Constitution and Article 1, it was an expensive exercise from us, the sovereigns, to give it to the institutions. But when that exercise is needed, it has to be done. Whatever is happening in Nairobi County is the problem of having weak institutions and strong personalities. Secondly, whatever is happening also in terms of the law is an advantage to the body-led NMS because they are having a field day, they still enjoy the powers they were given by Sonko because we do not have a substantive governor as at now yet. But the next question that we read is this: even if we were to allow Ann Kananu to ascend to become the governor, illegally as it is, how will we have achieved Section 32D of the County Government Act as amended in 2020, which says that the governor appoints, the county assembly vets, and then the governor nominates county assembly vets, and then the governor comes back and appoints. Who will appoint Ann Kananu? As is currently, when you read the Constitution and you read the County Government Act, Mutura was handicapped of that. And whatever happened, the remit that Mutura gave power back to Kananu doesn't exist in the law. It is then a constitutional sacrilege to even think about such a thing happening. And I'm glad that Justice Murima referred the matter to the acting Chief Justice so that they can empanel an odd bench to hear this matter. Because at the end of the day, we live for this constitution. We cannot subvert the same and survive the perils that come with it.
Thank you for that legal background, Bwana Akili. Javas, that is the reason why the Law Society of Kenya went to court to file that petition, and the High Court stopped the swearing in of the DG. Do you think the legal side will win over the politics, which is what we've seen for the most part so far?
Well, first I would say that if Kenyan politics was to be food, then I think all of us would have constipation because it would be very bad food. What is evident here in Kenya and in Nairobi is politics at play. In fact, hard tackle, bad politics that is happening. Now, we must not at any time have the courage to underestimate the relevance of facts and the sanctity of the law. I take the Constitution, and I understand it to be a living tree, and its provisions are alive and here with us. They lead us and guide us by the day. And as what even my fellow learned friend has indicated, that by the way of understanding and interpretation of Article 182 sub-Article 4 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, it is really proper that we must accord the respect to the Constitution and appreciate the rule of law as it is even one of the values of this country. And so, it is in good measure and test that the Law Society of Kenya has gone to court, has petitioned this matter, and in fact, that petition is what has stopped the swearing in of now acting, the deputy governor, potentially, okay, we could say acting governor of Nairobi, Ann Mwenda, from assuming or being sworn into office as governor. And I think it's also proper for us to see that there is wisdom in us being a nation that is guided not just by the rule of law, but that respects the Constitution, which Constitution actually even gives the sanctity and authority to the president being in office today, and he swore to protect this Constitution, and all members of Parliament and every cabinet secretary. And so when we find some individuals being enthused by the subversion of the Constitution, then it means that we're not taking matters governance seriously. From where I sit, I see ourselves as captains of the present times, but servants of the future. If at all we live through to see the subversion of this Constitution and other enabling pieces of legislation, such as the County Government Act, it will lay eggs for further subversion of the Constitution and other statutes in days, months, and years to come. And that will be a very bad ground to stand on. We must not find charm and enthusiasm standing on quicksand because of the risk of sinking. And it's because of this that I think there is beauty for us to also look at it from the perspective of devolved governance. When this happens, are we propelling and sustaining the true spirit of devolution and its functionalism? I have heard, and it's on record from the clip that you've played here, Ann Mwenda herself indicating that she's not a politician, she's not going to be a politician, and she's not going to play politics. I think her advisors and informers should actually try to restrain her from speaking in such a manner, because the office of governor, as it is in the Constitution, is a political office and sustained and protected by our laws. And so, to be in that office and not be a politician and play politics, then I think it is trying to be coy with the truth and shortchanging the objectivity, wisdom, and relevance of an occupant expected of that office. So mine, even though prophecy is not a lineage from which I was begot, I would say that if at all the judiciary will, and it's in its place to interpret the laws of this country, will have to sustain, protect the Constitution, then it will find folly in the manner in which, first of all, Ann Mwenda was sworn into office, and the agility with which political patronage intended to have her sworn into office as the governor of Nairobi.
Hesbon, allow me to ask you this, something that has become something of a cliche. What next, Nairobi?
Well, I think for Nairobi, just like Kipchumba has put it, unfortunately, we have NMS. So even the functions that the governor, the acting governor cannot execute because of the limitations provided for in the Constitution, for as long as NMS can deliver service to Kenyans, I think Nairobi will be a going concern. And the expectation is that it will continue to deliver services without further contravention of the law. Now, listening to lawyers, including the context that Kipchumba has given, first, there is the need to always establish a tradition of constitutionalism. But the one thing that stopped Kananu from vetting in the first place, because if Mike Sonko was going to go, if Kananu was to be vetted at the point where Mike Sonko appointed her, then she would have been the governor right now, because then Sonko would have left office through impeachment and Kananu would have assumed the office. Mm-hmm. But what stopped Kananu from doing that was a court order, a court case. And once the Kenyans who filed that case withdrew the case, then it was only in order that the whole process, I mean, constitutionally, the rights of Kananu were going to be infringed on if the case is vacated and then she is not vetted. So the vetting is not a problem. Now, where the Constitution has provided a lacuna for politicians to take advantage, and in this case, I would say they've taken it in the interest of Nairobians, is that the Constitution did not contemplate the situation that we found ourselves in. What the Constitution says is that once there is no governor, there is no deputy governor, then the speaker takes over for 60 days and then we have an election. But this is a situation that is unique and was not contemplated. And even if you want to look at it in whichever way, the law is made for man. It is not man for the law. So if man finds a way of serving the public interest without contravening the law or infringing on the rights of individuals who are also protected by the law, then man has to do that which is right. And I guess that is what was done here. You will not blame politicians for being politicians, because that is the essence of politics. You lobby, you woo people, you get power, and do with that power that which is in the interest of the public. So when you ask what next is, I hope Governor Kananu or Acting Governor Kananu will work with NMS within the framework of the law and deliver for the people of Nairobi.
Christmas, are we going to see a Nairobi governor anytime soon from how things stand?
I think the issue of Nairobi, one needs to look at it from two angles, from a legal perspective and from a political perspective.
Right.
Now, what has been happening in Nairobi is legal witchcraft and voodoo politics. Because the people who are running the show, and believe you me, the Deputy Governor, Ann Mwenda, has no idea of what is taking place. There's no way you're going to be Nairobi governor, then you claim you're not a politician. That statement alone confirms that she's probably a puppet, and there are people somewhere who are pulling the wings and pulling the strings. She doesn't know what is happening. And you don't need to be a lawyer to understand that illegalities are being committed. But unfortunately, these illegalities are being occasioned by members of the Law Society of Kenya. Like, for instance, the Law Society of Kenya comes when the train has left the station. Couldn't they file this petition very early in the day? Because anybody who goes to court today has to go through a member of the Law Society of Kenya. So there's a lot of legal witchcraft which is taking place. But the powers that be are very keen to ensure that we don't have a by-election in Nairobi. So this matter is going to run through all the courts in the High Court. They'll go to the Court of Appeal, they'll go to the Supreme Court. And believe you me, this matter may be settled 2032 when eventually everything is going to be done. Because the interest of the powers that be is that we don't have an election in Nairobi, we maintain the status quo so that NMS keeps on delivering. But when you go back to the beginning, how did we arrive here? We arrived here when Jubilee gave us Sonko, and they told us Sonko is a politician, he will do politics, and Igathe is going to be running the show because he's a technocrat who understands how business is done. So as we look at 2022, we must look at our political parties in the eyes and ask them to vet candidates so that the people they are presenting are solid, so that we don't have a similar situation in Nairobi. Because if Jubilee had done any solid vetting, then we'll not be experiencing the problem we're having in Nairobi. But at the end of the day, really, believe you me, by the time we go to the election next year, August, this matter will not be hard and settled.
Kipchumba Karori, from a legal standpoint, what should Nairobians expect to be happening next after this is heard and determined? And what is your prediction?
I think, Ben, what Nairobians should expect, first of all, is that now that we are entering a political heavy season, what we will see is what I'll consider as legal somersaults. There will be so many somersaulting legally about the position, but at the end of the day, Ben, the law and what is ascribed in Article 182.4.5 will reign and will triumph. So at the end of the day, I do not expect that one day I'll wake up and see Ann Kananu as a governor, because that is not the position that the framers of our constitution and the drafters of our County Government Act had in mind, that a deputy governor designate can take power. The only person who can take power when a governor is impeached is a substantive deputy governor. A deputy governor designate lacks the limb and the legal political authority to take over such an office. Any other construct being done by power brokers and fixers of the Nairobi system will fail at the end of the day. These cannot, it might have passed through some courts because of other conveniences, but at the end of the day, the realities of the law cannot be sustained through backroad and mediocre kind of creations.
Finally, Javas. Yes, thank you, Kipchumba. Finally, Javas. If the legal argument that we have seen being fronted by the LSK wins or comes to the fore, and we see a by-election, what are your political predictions? Are we going to see an ODM front, a candidate for the Nairobi gubernatorial seat? What about Jubilee? What do you see happening if we are to have a by-election?
First, I think the political power players at the top level seem not very keen to have Nairobi go to the by-election, knowing pretty well that it's going to be a serious contest that in a way also will serve as a barometer of the spirit of Nairobi's inhabitants about how the city is likely going to lean in the 2022's election leadership.
Don't they want to know, to find out?
The people perhaps want to find out, but those who are the leaders of the people seem to be in what I would call the proverbial state of Alice in Wonderland, whether to follow what or the path that the law says should be followed, or to follow the heart and the spirit of politics and its schemes. Of course, if at all the courts would have and sustain the soundness of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, then we know that, for example, within Jubilee, it may be of interest to recapture the seat of Nairobi's leadership, because the former governor, Mike Mbuvi Sonko, was a Jubilee leader.
Right.
And then now, of course, Jubilee today is not homogeneous in its intents, purposes, and strategy. That is why, for example, we saw that prior to the schemes and the plays that have emerged and the court processes now at hand, a faction of Jubilee, now allied to UDA, had fronted Bishop Margaret Wanjiru to be the flag bearer of that party, and that's a faction of Jubilee. Perhaps Jubilee's leadership, secretariat for that matter, would have to sit down and decide whether they will want to field a candidate for that seat and reclaim it. On the other hand, perhaps it may inspire ODM to field a candidate of its own, or perhaps, as it has now been characteristic of that party, would want to develop cold feet in terms of fielding its own candidate in the spirit of the Jubilee partnership under the handshake and have Jubilee front its own candidate. If that happens, then it may be a contest of Jubilee against Jubilee candidate, that is UDA and the principal Jubilee candidate, and then other fringe parties.
All right.
But of course, I know other critical parties that will want to stamp foot in this city, such as the Wiper Democratic Movement, may want to possibly field a candidate as well, and other parties.
All right. We'll wait to see what happens in Nairobi, county number 047. Let me take a look at some of your views very quickly. Leleti on Twitter says, maybe what you don't understand, reacting to somebody, is about perception, is that politics is about perception. The de facto position is that Raila is in government, while Ruto has been ostracized. In politics, the legal position will not matter. That is what Leleti says. Timons on Twitter says, after the handshake, the DP Ruto was frozen out of government and Odinga ran the show. Ayub Abdikadir says, politicians are ululating in agreements while sexing up case for 2022, that is the Hustler dynasty and rotational presidency. The establishment never aimed higher, acted bigger, a tanking economy, unemployment and soaring food prices, meanwhile concern Kenyans. Proud Kenyan says on Twitter, we are seeing a sad pattern of our political leaders addressing Kenyans or their supporters in mother tongue. Is this the new norm? Tribal division. When did Kikuyu, Luo, Kalenjin, Kamba, etc. become national languages? Kukabila wa BBI ndio unaanza. That is a Proud Kenyan's opinion. And finally, one from Leonard Churchill says, Jubilee has failed totally. Why is William Ruto being blamed when Uhuru is in charge? The buck stops with the presidency. With the president, Kenyans remember Kibaki's government, but nobody remembers Kalonzo. Keep the conversation going on Twitter. The hashtag is Inside Politics. Shall be sampling more views during this show. Take a quick commercial break. One final one here on Inside Politics. When we come back, we shall be waiting to hear from you. You can call in studio with your questions, views, comments. Our studio lines will be scrolling at the bottom end of your screen. Stay with us.
This is KTN News.